Welcome to the Local Content Weekly program, showcasing activities of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board (NCDMB) and all stakeholders in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria.
Welcome to the Local Content Television program. On the program this week, we'll bring you the NCDMB and Nigerian Army partnership. We'll be back after this time out. Don't go away.
The Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board (NCDMB) has developed a 10-year strategic roadmap. The roadmap has 5 key pillars, namely technical capability development, compliance and enforcement, enabling business environment, organization capability, and sectorial and regional market linkage. The pillars will be supported by 4 enablers: funding, regulatory environment, collaboration and stakeholder engagement, and research and development. Under the 10-year roadmap, the board targets to create 300,000 direct and indirect jobs from activities in the industry, retain $14 billion in the local economy out of the $20 billion spent annually by the oil and gas industry, grow Nigerian content from the current 26% to 70%, extend the local content practice to the key sectors of the economy. NCDMB, building local capacities in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. This is a special announcement to all unemployed youths. Register now at the Nordic JQS website. It is your opportunity for numerous training programs in the oil and gas industry of Nigeria going on all the time. Upload your CVs and fill all your information online now. Log in to www.nordicjqs.gov.ng.
Welcome back. The Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board (NCDMB) will support the Nigerian Army with its plans to increase the level of Nigerian content and the manufacture and procurement of military hardware and accessories. the Executive Secretary NCDMB, Engineer Simbi Wabote, made the commitment when he delivered the keynote address at the Nigerian Army Research and Innovation Summit in the Army Resource Center in Abuja recently.
The summit, which was held at the Nigerian Army Resource Center, attracted producers of made-in-Nigeria products, the academia, and the general public. Welcoming guests, the Chief Transformation and Innovation, Nigerian Army, Major General C.O. Ude, described the event as presenting a forum for the Nigerian Army and key stakeholders to engage in military production and innovation while finding the solution to the Army's operational needs, with a theme to develop local content in Nigeria's defense sector for sustainable command efficiency.
The summit has attracted diverse interests and stakeholders in the defense production within and outside Nigeria, who offer their knowledge and experience towards developing a viable local content policy in Nigeria's military-industrial complex. The mandate of the Department of Transformation and Innovation is to optimize, in practical terms, through research and innovation, the Chief of Army Staff's vision, which is to have a professionally responsive Nigerian Army in the discharge of its constitutional roles. The department is also mandated to midwife the transformation program of the Nigerian Army towards enhanced combat efficiency. It is our belief that with the rich array of participants and resource persons here present, the objectives of this summit will be met. Permit me at this stage to express our profound gratitude to the Chief of Army Staff for his inspiring leadership, direction, and absolute commitment to the transformation program of the Nigerian Army. I also thank our major partners, the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, the Bank of Industries, and the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria for their belief in this cause and for their support. May I also thank all participants, distinguished invited guests, and our esteemed resource persons for finding time and resources, sparing their time and resources to be with us today.
The Executive Secretary NCDMB, Engineer Simbi Wabote, was represented by the Director of Planning, Research and Statistics, Mr. Daziba Patrick Obah, who delivered a paper on local content development in Nigeria's defense sector, an imperative for national development, and stressed that for research and development to succeed and yield return on investment, it requires the collaboration of various stakeholders and a long gestation period, adding that the board's research and development strategy is supported by the research and development guidelines and ministerial regulations.
Everybody wants to do buying and selling because they want quick return on investment. But we must also learn, to be able to do it the hard way. Good things don't come easy. And I know one thing, when I was, in my university days, I know there's something called exothermic reaction and there's something called endothermic reaction. Exothermic reaction is the one that comes out shouting, just like that, and it releases a lot of heat and it fizzles out. The endothermic reaction takes its time, absorbs heat from the environment, and at the end of it produces very stable products. So we must also learn to adopt that as part of our lifestyle. Another fact is that it's the key to sustainable growth and development that has been said. It is the only way to develop new technology using local materials. And it requires collaboration, of course we know, and there should be value created for stakeholders. If people have come together to do research and development, let the value be spread to everybody. Let people benefit from whatever intellectual product has come from it. So let us not be greedy when we look at that. And then we need to create that research and development culture right from our primary and secondary school levels.
Mr. Daziba Obah also explained that there is also need for the Nigerian Army to incorporate local content requirements as a key condition for its procurements, particularly in local assembly of armored cars, software development, assembly of equipment for intelligence gathering, production of uniforms, local production of bulletproof vests and maintenance of warships in Nigerian shipyards, and local production of boots and helmets.
We must look inwards to optimize those sectors that feed, feed those industries that utilize those materials that much. And I think the same story goes to the Nigerian Army. I believe that over 90% of what you use for your hardware, apart from ICT, is made of metals, because that is what can give us a lot of resistance to impact. And so what are we doing as Nigerians? How do we raise our voices to ensure that that sector is reactivated? It's almost dead. And so I call upon the Nigerian Army today to ensure that we join voices with us to be able to call on the federal government to be able to look into that sector appropriately. It's going to benefit a lot of Nigerians. It's going to create jobs for Nigerians. And then, of course, the last one is in-country services. As you can see, there's a lot going on in the country in the oil and gas sector. There's so much going on in the marine sector because of the ownership of marine vessels. And then Nigerians are also beginning to acquire rigs for offshore activities.
We cannot have local content if we follow the normal channel of public procurement. There should be a separate channel only for local content. There should be separate documentation for local content. That way, we are going to enhance local content and develop a database of those who are local content manufacturers. That was a point that was raised by us at the Technical Working Committee, but I don't think it was accepted. The same applies to companies and multinationals that want to support local content. They have a separate local content desk, and that separate local content desk is also in the procurement section, because different things apply for local content procurement, because you have different benchmarks and you have to meet those benchmarks and show how you are improving on the local content. This is a practical tip. It is not only coming from NCDMB and from our success in the oil and gas. A number of other countries in the world, including South Africa, use this.
Some few years ago, after extensive research and development, we came out with the OBJ-6 rifle, which is in the same class with the AK-47. As we talk today, it has remained at the prototype point. We have not been able to mass produce. Leave that aside, let's go ahead. In the armed forces and security services in Nigeria today, there are variants of rifles. So many types of rifles, and even every year, we are buying new type of rifle. I think in other climes, what we see obtainable in other climes is that Nigeria is a big market. We can't decide that it is this particular type of rifle that we want to use for the military, maybe another type for the paramilitary. Then we set up a production line. And that production line will be in business because there will be massive market, not to even talk of exporting. But now, within the Nigerian Army, there are many types of rifles. Even in the Nigerian Air Force, there are many types of rifles. Let's leave that again. Let's press on to talk of ready market. That brings us to ready market. The Civil War, during the period of the Civil War, DICOM played a very huge role in sustaining the Civil War, at least in terms of 7.62 ammunition. It's surprising that we can't sustain the Nigerian military just with ordinary 7.62 ammunition, even though we have some of the production line. I think if there is a political will, or if our procurement policy is adjusted such that our primary market, the first choice for our primary market for 7.62, or any type of the ammunition is from DICON, I'm sure DICON will work.
The Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board (NCDMB) has developed a 10-year strategic roadmap. The roadmap has 5 key pillars, namely technical capability development, compliance and enforcement, enabling business environment, organization capability, and sectorial and regional market linkage. The pillars will be supported by 4 enablers: funding, regulatory environment, collaboration and stakeholder engagement, and research and development. Under the 10-year roadmap, the board targets to create 300,000 direct and indirect jobs from activities in the industry, retain $14 billion in the local economy out of the $20 billion spent annually by the oil and gas industry, grow Nigerian content from the current 26% to 70%, extend the local content practice to the key sectors of the economy. NCDMB, building local capacities in the Nigerian oil and gas industry.
Welcome back. The Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board has donated desktop computers, textbooks, and workbooks to the Bayelsa State Post-Primary Schools Board, PPSB, as part of its capacity development initiatives. The items will be distributed to secondary schools in the state.
On behalf of the Executive Secretary of Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board and top management of the board, we are pleased to hand over the computer books formally to the Bayelsa State Post-Primary Schools Board.
The General Manager, Capacity Development Division, NCDMB, Engineer Ikpomosa Oviasu, was represented at the event by the Chief Officer, Capacity Building Division, Mr. Augustine Timberi, and emphasized the importance of computer education, particularly in our world that is driven completely by information communications technology, stressing that the board will always continue to develop and empower the education sector.
Science and tech is very critical in the development of any society. And in the oil and gas industry, it is an industry that is driven by science and technology. So we have been so concerned about science education in Nigeria. So before building capacity, you first of all have to identify gaps. And we studied our public secondary schools and observed that there was a critical gap in ICT. No society will grow without ICT. It's a driver of technology. So, after this identification, so what do? We need to come up with an intervention. Of course, that is what we do in the board. We develop models, strategies, and frameworks to intervene where we identify critical gaps in the oil and gas industry and the allied sectors. Of course, the oil and gas industry does not exist and it does not operate in isolation. We have the allied sectors that provide supporting services to the oil and gas industry. So even if our mandate is on the oil and gas industry, we do not isolate the allied sectors.
Receiving the donations on behalf of the chairman of the Bayelsa State Post-Primary Schools Board, Engineer I.E. Digitemi thanked the NCDMB for its commitment towards improving science education in the state and encouraged the board to do more in support of the education in the state.
First of all, I want to say thank you to Local Content for your magnanimity, for coming to identify with the government that is education friendly, for your unsolicited support to this government to consolidate on its mandate to put education as primary. We are very grateful, and on behalf of the chairman of this board and every other member, I want to say thank you. I also want to assure the Local Content board that these items that you've given to us, we are guaranteeing that we'll put them into the best use. Our students will get them, will receive them, and will ensure that monitoring is also instituted so that the best is going to come out of this, and ensure that our students and Bayelsa State stands to benefit the most from these items you have given to us. Finally, I also want to assure you that by this time it's no news that the state government is an education-friendly government, and so the leader of the government, our governor, will hear about this. We're not going to be quiet on this. The commissioner is going to hear about this, and this your good message will be carried to all those who are concerned. Once again, thank you, and God bless you.
The items donated include 752 computer textbooks, 752 computer workbooks, and 32 desktop computers. The NCDMB provides several other institutional support to education in Bayelsa State, including the annual NCDMB and NTA Science Competition for secondary schools and career counseling for secondary school students.
This is an invitation to all stakeholders in the oil and gas industry to take advantage of this platform to advertise their conferences, exhibitions, and other activities. For more information, please call 0905 511 1134. That is 0905 511 1134. Email localcontentmedia@gmail.com. The Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board (NCDMB) has developed a 10-year strategic roadmap. The roadmap has 5 key pillars, namely technical capability development, compliance and enforcement, enabling business environment, organization capability, and sectorial and regional market linkage. The pillars will be supported by 4 enablers: funding, regulatory environment, collaboration and stakeholder engagement, and research and development. Under the 10-year roadmap, the board targets to create 300,000 direct and indirect jobs from activities in the industry, retain $14 billion in the local economy out of the $20 billion spent annually by the oil and gas industry, grow Nigerian content from the current 26% to 70%, extend the local content practice to the key sectors of the economy. NCDMB, building local capacities in the Nigerian oil and gas industry.
Welcome back. And that's what we have for you this week. Tune in to your local content television program every Wednesdays, 5:30 p.m. on the NTA network, NTA International Services, while I remain your host, Don Pedro Okoje. Thank you for watching. See you next week.